Okay, thank you. This is getting cold, excuse me. I'm a bit like an old vintage car. I'll keep going as long as I'm oiled. I'd just like to say a couple of things before I start, please. There are people who don't like talking in front of other people. If you have any questions or you wish to see any research that I have used, there is nothing to stop you. I'm in the Liverton phone book, Newton Abbot. There's nothing to stop you, and I know some people here, and they have been out to my house, nothing to stop you ringing me up saying, "Hey Barry, can I pop out for a cup of coffee, look at this, discuss this," and there's no problem with that. It goes on all the time. I've had 5 people this week. There's no problem at all with that. Anything I say, I have documentary evidence for. I can't bring it all here. I've used 1,700 papers to compile this and my last talk. But you're welcome to come and look at them and criticize them and say, "Can I have a copy of this?" And take it away for whatever you want to take it away for. But I don't say a single word unless I have documentary evidence. Now, my aim is not to upset anybody, but some of the things I say, can. Between 1949 and 1962, everything we needed to know about microwaves was known and published. By 1962, all of the dangers, all of the hazards, everything was known. And when I say all of them, between the superpowers and us, the brain at that time had been studied for brain waves, and microwaves could be used to penetrate the brain and cause behavioral changes. And by 1962, with the resonance frequencies of the organs and the brain, the cyclotronic resonance frequencies, circadian resonance frequencies, a statement was made in 1962 by the governments that birth defects, all birth defects, organs, whole organisms, all cells, brain function, all emotions, all moods could be altered, changed, and destroyed by 1962. Microwaves then, as now, were used as stealth weapons before they became cell phones. In 1965, the use of cell phones by the military was used. I had them. By 1965, the prospect of cell phones and everything from cell phones was seen as a really, really lucrative market for the general public. And knowing the dangers that cell phones could cause, the military are exempt. You do not have, in the military, when you sign, any danger that comes your way for using whatever, that's it. You don't have any recourse for that. But the general populations do. And the military and the industry of several countries, the United States, Canada, us, some of the NATO countries, Australia and New Zealand, the people got together and they knew that cell phones and all the other gadgets you have today, they knew they would not be allowed under the current safety limits. And we needed a safety limit that could never be taken to court and never challenged if these things were to progress. And in 1965, they adopted an old 1953 thermal level by an engineer by the name of Schwann. And in order to prevent being taken to court, the industries and the people who make the decisions, they adopted the Schwann 1953 level, which basically says if a certain weight of your tissue, either 10 grams or a kilogram, depending which way you are going, does not heat up by a certain temperature in 6 minutes, then everything will be deemed safe for a lifetime's exposure for adults, women, children, pregnant women, everybody. And the 6-minute thermal level is the one that is still used today. They totally ignored and put aside the electric and magnetic vectors of the wave and the harm that the electric and magnetic vectors can do. What's my stick? It's all right. Sorry. Thank you very much. Thanks. They put aside all of the harm from the electric and magnetic vectors, so I don't knock it over again. Now, they interfere with the electrical conductivity of the cells, the electrical conductivity of the neurons, the electrical conductivity of the brain. They interfere with the resonant frequency of the circadian resonant cells, the cyclotronic ions. In fact, they interfere with everything. So all of those are brushed aside, and we stuck with the 6-minute thermal limit. Sometimes they extend it to 30 minutes, but basically it is a 6-minute, and that is what is in force today in 42% of the planet of what we are in that part today. So you have really no protection against the electric and magnetic vectors. And as I say, that is in force today. That comes from the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, who advise what was the government scientists, now Public Health England, who advise government, who advise councils, and it comes all the way down, and it is still in force today. I will be coming on to 5G later. 5G is not new. 5G was causing a nuisance in 1972. The only thing new about 5G is its name, 5th generation. That's it. That is the only thing new. It is well documented. There are many research papers on it. And finally, in 1971, cancer was proven to be caused by low-level microwave radiation and has been kept secret ever since, along with all of the other illnesses and diseases. In the early 70s, this document was published. It was by the American military. It is top secret, classified top secret. And it lists 2,000 research papers, 2,000, and each of those took many, many years to construct. 2,000 research papers, because in those days the military did the research with the universities. And it covers all of the illnesses which you can expect to get and die from continuous low-level radiation. This, I think, is the most shameful document ever to be published. It is by the World Health Organization. We pay them to protect us, and we trust them to protect us. In 1973, the World Health Organization had a conference in Warsaw, Biological Effects and Health Hazards of Microwave Radiation, Below Thermal Radiation, which is what you have on your cell phones. 350 pages documenting harm to the ordinary person. 107 different chapters. Chapter 40 deals with cancer, I think 28 reproductive faults. But instead of telling the world, I don't know who made them make the decision, instead of telling the world, it was stamped top secret with a big red top secret stamp. It still is. And you still will not be told about this. They will not admit to it, even today. The second most shameful document, I think, is this one. This was published between 1972 and 1976. The final part was 1976. It is from the US Defense Intelligence Agency. And the document says, if the more advanced nations of the West, which is us, are strict in the enforcement of exposure standards, there could be unfavorable effects on industrial output. Industrial output is profit, and military function. In other words, what they wanted us to do was set a level of radiation for the NATO countries, set a level of radiation that would not be strict. Hence, we came in with the 6-minute thermal level that is still in place today and what councils are advised to adhere to. At that time, the World Health Organization, again, what they didn't tell you, on their website, or on their, what they had on these days, 80% of the published papers linked cancer to low-level microwaves. And the others, you had neurological damage, birth defects. There was no secret among the decision makers then. And every so often, generally when a new G comes out, a new, one of the new makes of the cell phone, the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, they put out an addendum to their original report, which clears the way for whichever generation it is coming out. There's a new one coming out in a couple of days to clear the way for 5G. This is the original, or a copy of the original International Commission document, and it is of interest to decision makers, all decision makers, excuse me. Because I think I'm not legally trained and I cannot understand people when they talk to me who are legally trained. But I will give you my interpretation of this. And this is for council decision makers and all other decision makers. They actually say in this that their recommendations are guidelines. They are not law. You do not have to adhere to them. They are guidelines. They say they only consider involving the heating of tissue. They go on to say, for example, children, the elderly, and some chronically ill people may have a lower tolerance for one or more forms of these microwaves than the rest of the population. They will be deemed sensitive. And then they say on page 547 of this one, in practice, the critical steps in applying these general procedures may differ across the spectrum. Several steps in these procedures require scientific judgment. For example, on reviewing the scientific literature and determining an appropriate reduction factor. In other words, in my simple brain, if you are told that something is dangerous, as a decision maker, you have the authority to say, this says this level will cause this. I am instructed to reduce the level to a point that is deemed safe. You do not have somebody walk into your school or somewhere and say, sign here, Gov, these are radio waves. We've had radio for 100 years, no problems. And then, zonk, there's a transmitter, and you come back a week later, and like Lego, some other people have gone dong, 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 and you've just a mass of things that you don't understand, and nobody will tell you what they are anyway. Now, I brought a couple of books along, not because I get any money if they're sold or anything like that, but along with the whistleblowers, of which I am one, I have known for many, 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 many years a captain who is an electronics warfare specialist captain. He worked with the Canadian military government and CIA, and he published a book. And in this book, and I can give you the title, and he's updated it. This is the original. He's updated it for 5G. And in it, whereas Snowden, the whistleblower a few years ago, put everything on the internet, he has put all of the top secret papers into a book, given the websites where you can download them if you are a decision maker and you want proof of something. He includes our government, the International Commission, and he's put them all in a book under different categories, everything to do with cell phones, Wi-Fi, 5G, government, and all that. But the reason I want to quote this one is because he has quoted that before this bubble bursts, with children and everybody running around with everything stuck to the sides of their heads, it is expected and anticipated there will be 2 billion deaths. Now, I questioned that in my own mind, and I thought, that's a lot. And in my simple Janet and John brain, I couldn't work out what 2 billion deaths actually means. But it is, if you imagine everybody who died in World War II, it is 28 times that number. And that's a lot. But when I started looking into this, I thought, well, I remember when I was teaching And I remember the time in the early 80s when I said to my science class, and I said, we have just passed the 100,000 deaths a year rate in this country for smoking-related deaths. And then you start looking around the world for smoking. Smoking was linked to, they didn't know the name then, but they knew that you had lung congestion and died with big black ugly bits. In 1870, smoking was linked to cancer and death in 1870. In 1939, all of the science was in place to have it stopped. Then the government scientists and industry scientists, who are sometimes one of the same person, step in and they delay things for 50, 60 years, which is what happened to smoking. Exactly the same with lead in petrol, and there are many other examples. So when I looked at this and I thought, well, smoking is probably comparable to 2 billion by now. Lead in petrol certainly will be. And I looked around a few figures, and a 10-year international study around the world in various countries had many, many thousands of miscarriages, suicides, deaths around transmitters. Lima, near Peru, the country, is known as Cancer City, where it is unregulated. Just 2 provinces in India, they have 50,000 brain tumors in children and 100,000 plus dead in the provinces attributed to mobile phone masts. And so it goes on. And when you start looking at examples like this, in a paper I wrote, and anyone can come out to my house and read it and copy it. In a paper I wrote, there was a survey done, I'm trying to think, probably 15 years ago, of some of the schools in France and Spain, and they found 200 schools with cancer clusters of 8 or more different types of cancers attributed to the transmitter in the playground. We had I was involved in 11 children under 11 with leukemia after a transmitter went up. They all died. It was taken to Parliament. The MP put forward a very, very good case. It took 18 months to get to Parliament. And the minister stood up and said, we are within international guidelines, and sat down. And that was it. In fact, the minister lied. We're not within international guidelines. There are, and I'm not going to dwell on these, but I just, for the decision makers, I will just run through a couple of these. There are already deaths. Go on, Barry, sort yourself out, man. What's the matter with you? There are already deaths from Wi-Fi in class, from here to New Zealand. There are 136 studies of harm in schools, proper studies, from Wi-Fi and transmitters in schools. There are 48 studies on child suicide. It's going up around 4% every year. I'll just stop there for a second. It is the pulses or modulations from the frequencies. Professor Mio, King Saud University, he has shown, especially in a child's brain where the tissue is particularly soft, the skull, he has shown that the microwaves penetrate deep into all areas of a child's brain. And a scientist, Penifael, Penifael, in 1997, he listed a list of 1 to 600 pulse frequencies that could cause neurological and physiological damage in the body. In the paper I had there from the military, they list all of the symptoms that you can be warned about if you are taken to court, and the last one is severe neurological damage, including death. So, suicide is one of the 5 most commonest from microwaves going into the brain, and I'm not a neurosurgeon, I just know from experience. The 5 most commonest in order are the same symptoms that you would receive from morphine or marijuana: hunger, excessive hunger, aggression, and if the pulse frequency is a certain frequency, which I won't say on camera, the aggression manifests itself as aggressive, suicidal sexual aggression. So you can get aggressive from the microwaves, and the particular pulse frequency will manifest itself as sexual aggression, particularly from men. And the last one is, I'm not a medical doctor, I describe it as the same symptoms as lead arsenide poisoning, where you just want to go to bed and die, and if somebody came in with a bag and said, "There's £1 million, go and spend it," you wouldn't be bothered. Those are the most commonest symptoms that you get from microwaves in the brain at varying degrees. And any neurologists here, I can run through the processes if you wish. Right, okay, here we go. Pregnant women are particularly vulnerable because the womb, of course, is mostly fluid, and microwaves are attracted and stay in and rearrange the chemical structures of the fluid in many ways. There is a 20-fold higher concentration of damage within the womb. A pediatrician with a neurologist, a medical neurologist, went into a school. I don't know the size of the school, but he found 31 children with physical damage and neurological damage related to the transmitter. The World Health Organization published a paper that showed that a level of microwave irradiation for a pregnant woman can reach 47.7% as a miscarriage, stillbirth, or genetically damaged child rate. 47.7%. A paper published a few years ago, just a couple of years ago, by the European Academy for Environmental Medicine, who are an incredibly talented bunch of doctors and clever people. They looked at their own research and came up with 48%. For school children, and I have taught pregnant school children and I've worked with pregnant teachers, for school children you can add a risk factor of between 10 and 20% more. I don't know exactly, and I don't know anybody who does, due to the increased electrical conductivity in their bodies, the absence of a full working immune system that isn't really up and running till they're 18 or so, the absence of the hardness of the bones and the easiness of the microwaves to penetrate the bones, which are not really fully developed till they're around 27, the last being the clavicle. And of course in the bones you have the bone marrow, which helps with the immune system. So children are particularly vulnerable, between 40% and 60% vulnerable. When I'm talking to governments or royalty or people like that abroad, the one question I say to them is, if you do nothing, and a lot of them are, this isn't all bad news, 58% of the world are doing a lot. We're not, but 58% of the world are. And my aim is to get us doing something. When I say to them, if you do nothing, just look at let's take an average of 50%. The mathematics is relatively simple. It's like a decay curve, a nuclear decay curve. In one generation of exposed children, let's say 20 years, a half of your newborns are going to have some sort of defect if they are alive. Another 20 years, you're down to a quarter. Another 20 years, you are down to an eighth. So in 60 years, I say to them, and this isn't my work, this is the work of proper, real professionals doing this job. In 60 years, only 1 in 8 of your children can be born or expected to be born healthy. How are you going to run your infrastructure? How are you going to run your health service? Who's going to pay for it? Where are the taxes coming from? Who's going to man the factories? Where are they coming from? The only answer to this is mass immigration. That is the only answer if you wish to survive as a country. And I'm coming on to trees and animals later. I'm coming on to trees and animals later, but it's worth mentioning here while I think about it. The scientists will know this, but we all have the same 4 chemical bases in our DNA. Any tree can read your DNA sequence. The nucleotides won't do it any good because it doesn't interest a tree, because a tree doesn't do what we do. But any tree can read your DNA sequence. And anything that damages our DNA, and if there are any professionals here who would like to know the sequence through the cell, I'll happily give it to you. Anything that will will damage our DNA will damage all other living species' DNA, all of them, plants and animals. And the figures are showing this. And as far as I know, there are only 3 living things on the planet that seem impervious to microwaves. There are, as I said, 48 papers on childhood suicide, which manifests itself quite a lot with cell phones. There are as many papers on breast cancer, and I can't go into the breast cancer now, it is a mammoth topic, but I can do questions. I have a picture here which I won't show, but you're welcome to come and have a look if you wish, of a lady who tucked the cell phone into her bra. But breast cancer is a phenomenally high rate among people who carry cell phones in their handbags or have the metal stays in the bra. And finally, on this little section, a surgeon from Plymouth, a brain surgeon, questioned why the amount of brain tumours he was seeing did not match the amount he was doing, the operations he was carrying out. I need my glasses. And the answer, if I can find it, here we are. The brain surgeon challenged the statistics. And we looked into this. I had a letter from him and I wrote to him. And I sent him a copy of this. And our statistical office of statistics, whatever it is, they take, or they did then, and it's, as far as I know, it's still going, they are taking 40,000 brain tumours off these statistics every single year. 40,000. And it is justified. What they are saying is, aha, the endocrine glands in the brain are not actually grey or white matter. We associate the brain with grey or white matter. Therefore, they're not really brain. Therefore, the tumours of the endocrine glands are not brain, so we can take those. So we take off the 40,000 endocrine cancers a year. And this is how it goes on, and this is how you get your figures down. But I did say to the doctor, surgeon, you work for the NHS. If you try and raise this, I have known 2 area health authority, whatever the chief person is called, the chief of the area health authority, I have known one be threatened that she would lose her job in 1/2 of one day if she brought this to anybody's attention, and the other one that the best thing he could do was keep quiet and stick to other things. Now, we put Wi-Fi in schools. We put Wi-Fi in schools. You can go into virtually any state primary school and they will have 20 Wi-Fis in the class, plus the routers on the ceiling, plus a transmitter, and there will probably be iPads as well. And they are all microwaves. What you are not told, and if you are a school governor or a decision maker, what you are not told when you put these in front of our 5-year-olds or even 4-year-olds these days, what you are not told is that the Wi-Fi in your classroom or your children's or grandchildren's classroom or their bedroom, the Wi-Fi is in the same category for danger. The World Health Organization, International Agency for Research on Cancer. They are in the same category, exactly the same, as mercury, lead, DDT, benzene, which is the smell from petrol you get, exhaust fumes from cars, HIV type 2, and chloroform. The same. Now, if I walked into anybody's school with any of those and said, here you are, play with this for a day, I would be jailed, certified, sectioned, and jailed. And yet, we've got children with these on their laps. I think somebody worked out for 13 hours over a school lifetime or something. But the good news, the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, they have been a very, very tightly guarded body, secretive. You can't join them, you have to be invited to join them. They don't answer to anybody, they are not elected. And they have been a very, very close community. But just Saturday, they are based in Germany. On Saturday, we have a defector. And with 5G coming, he is not prepared to do what they are doing or be a member of their gang anymore. And this arrived from Germany on Saturday for me. And he has said, and he has gone public, there are now 2 large, well-executed and solid studies that point in the same direction. Cancer from exposure from all of these technologies. The data in the large study which found clear correlation between exposure to mobile radiation and cancer rates shows even greater cancer risks than revealed in the first report. Therefore, World Health Organization hazard class 1 instead of today's class 2, which is the one I've just read. It is an airtight argumented conclusion which supports an overwhelming amount of research. He is asking the world to upgrade the cancer certification from grade 2, which is mercury and lead and benzene, up to grade 1. He said the research substantiates that. Now, I'm going to finish off for 10 minutes, then we stop for a break. I'm going to just finish off with a few bits on Wi-Fi, because I think this is important, because these are our children and grandchildren. Here we go. Right, I'm just going to run over a few things. I am not alone in running around the world trying to do this. There are a lot of people doing lots of things, and we'll have some good news here. The industry themselves, come on Barry, sort yourself out. The industry themselves in the year 2000 studied the top 220 research articles and said that what they are putting out actually does cause cancer. The Council of Europe, 47 countries, 800 million people. Simple statement: ban Wi-Fi in schools. Dr. Annie Sasko, 22 years World Health Organization Cancer Department. Mobiles, cell phones and Wi-Fi will cause cancer. Switzerland, France, Germany, Belgium, England, this is not the state schools, England have started to remove Wi-Fi from schools. UNICEF, the big children's charity who care for children, decided to look into this, and they did their own study, nobody interfered, and they came up with their own conclusion. They found there was an 85% risk of brain and heart damage. And in fact, in Canada, I think it is, in the schools, they've had heart attacks from children from Wi-Fi, and now the classrooms have defibrillators in. 85% brain and heart damage, 36% epilepsy, 11% neurological harm, 82% blood, immune and fetal damage. Iceland, Cyprus, Italy, Canada, Russia, USA are either removing or starting to remove Wi-Fi from schools. Okay. Finally on this, just two things. I think this lady, internationally, she is renowned for being particularly clever. And I'd like to read just what she wrote here. She is a pediatric neurologist, Dr. Maya Klein, and she has said, pregnant women deserve to know that wireless radiation can have an impact on the developing brain. We're seeing alarming increases in the number of children diagnosed with neurological disorders over the past decade. And finally here, I've got an article here. I won't take it out and show it to you. It's a very large article published in a science journal, and because he was so worried, and with no disrespect to some of the people here, and I know some of the people here because I know them, are recognized nationally and internationally for their knowledge. With no disrespect to the people here, Professor Yuri Gregoriev, who is chair of the Russian Federation for Nuclear and Atomic Sciences, and probably the most knowledgeable person on the planet concerning microwaves and harm, he came over here for one specific purpose. He wanted this article published, which it was, and he gave a lecture, and he wanted to warn our government, do not put microwaves in schools. Do not put Wi-Fi in schools. Wi-Fi will have severe neurological damage and physical damage to our children. He came all the way over here just to say that and to warn us. And anyone wants to see the article, you can come around my house and read it and photograph it. Okay, do you want, I'm going on to trees and 5G after this. Is this a good time? Would you want to stop now? I've done an hour. Yeah, we'll stop now, and then we'll stop for a quick break, and then I'll do trees, 5G, which is all I've got left. They won't take long, and then we'll have all the questions. Before I start with trees and 5G and animals, I just want to mention these books. As I say, he is a whistleblower, but this one, the updated one, you can now get off Amazon. So if you ring up Amazon or do whatever you do on a computer, I don't have one, it'll probably be there next day. And this one you have to send to Canada for. But I brought this one specifically because there is a chapter here for decision makers, councillors, decision makers. I just want to read this bit here. And everything in here, you have the website and everything you need to get it. This is for decision makers from 2015. And it says, school districts, boards, medical health officers now know Lloyd's of London will not provide liability coverage for injuries, directly or indirectly, arising out of, resulting from, or contributed to by electromagnetic fields, electromagnetic radiation, radio waves, noise. This applies to Wi-Fi and all wireless devices in schools. And I believe, I don't know that I'm correct, but I believe Lloyds insure other insurance companies. And if I were a decision maker, one thing I would ask for in writing, because apart from the harm, which my brain can't even contemplate, apart from the harm, if you are taken to court over the death or an injury of a child, and you have no insurance cover, and I have had parents and people come to me and say, what do I do about injury? And I say, well, there will be insurance, or there will not be insurance, depending on. Ask your school people or your council or whoever for the specific sentence in their policy that says we will cover your child, whatever, from electromagnetic illness. There should be a specific sentence there that says that. If there is not, then I don't know the law, but if as a decision maker you are taken to court, I have spent a whole day in court being cross-examined by an incredibly ambitious, tenacious barrister. And I was defending a girl who did not want to have an unhealthy child and wanted Wi-Fi taken out of school. And I thought after that, Andrew Goldsworthy, who works with ESUK as an advisor, he was the medical expert. And I thought, I'm glad I was on my side because I can stand my ground. And I thought, if I were a decision maker against such a barrister, I would be taken to pieces with the information that is there. And I think it's something that decision makers just need to bear in mind. Trees, right. I'm quoting this from the magazine ESUK, which I think there's some copies over there, but it's quarterly or 4 times a year, and they do cover lots of legal aspects, and they have their doctors, scientific advisors, and it is well worth getting, and it's not expensive. But in ESUK, there is an article here on trees subjected to low-level microwave irradiation, 29 pages, the red oak, cherry, willow, black poplar, and all trees suffer the same. They all start losing their immune system once you bombard them with communications microwaves. Trees are designed to pick up radiation. They are not designed to pick up microwaves. They do not like microwaves. Even children in school do experiments with watercress near cell phones or with microwave water. It's patently obvious that any tree does not like microwaves. And the moment you start microwaving a tree, 2 things happen. First is the tree starts to lose its immune system. And secondly, I did say there were 3 species on Earth that I know of that are impervious to microwaves. One of them is bacteria, microorganisms. They seem to thrive under the energy from microwaves. I don't know why. I have had it explained to me by a professor, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. But 2 things happen with trees. First, the bacterium start to thrive and invade the tree. And secondly, the tree starts to lose its immune system, and it's only a matter of time. Here, where 5G is going up, all around the world, where 5G is going up, trees are coming down. The reason is trees inhibit the progress of 5G. 5G is not a big around circular wave that you get from transmitters. 5G is a beam, sort of a cross between a torch and a laser. It is a beam, and that beam has trouble going through a tree trunk or the density of leaves, especially if they're wet, and especially along roads. I have had calls from all over the world saying, Barry, why are they cutting our trees down? And I say, is 5G going up? Yes. There is your answer. In Malta, the lady that rang me said they're cutting the trees down and the reason is that motorists can see better. In the USA, when they're just not giving an explanation, they're just cutting them down. Sydney is the only place I know, Sydney, Australia, where they're telling the truth, and the application into the government is the submission to the government 5G inquiry. Sacrifice trees for network performance and overwhelming numbers of small cells. In Australia, they've just said, if you want 5G, we cut the trees down. Simple as that. Here, our local paper, or my local paper, out at Bobby Tracy, the advertiser here, we are culling. Now, the reason given to us, we are culling in the Teignbridge area, that I come under Teignbridge, 90,000 trees to stop the prevention of dieback. I don't know what dieback is, I'm not a tree expert, but we are cutting down 90,000 trees, and we are also cutting down, it is 440,000 trees along the road so that they do not pose a danger to motorists. Now, I wrote a letter to the newspaper along with a lot of other people. Mine is here, and I've said, is it a coincidence that we have to cut down 440,000 trees, suddenly posing a danger, at the exact location that 5G needs to go up on the lampposts? 5G has to go up about every 100, 150 meters. Magazines, I'm not the only one with research. There is an article here that birds, bees, insects, trees, the migration of animals, colony collapse, a big study on aspen trees. There are 20 studies here, proper university studies on all of these. And it is the same thing, really. All of those, you suppress the immune system, and for the animals, the navigating animals, the ones that use the sun or the Earth's magnetic field, even the creepy crawlies that go along the ground, they use navigation from the Earth and from the sun. But for the scientists here, I'm talking about the cryptochrome pigment double electron absorption system that has been published in Nature for robins, and we know the other birds have it, the other animals have it. Animals lose their immune system, all animals, and those that use the sun or the Earth's magnetic field, they become disorientated. Migrating birds get lost, butterflies get lost, and you have quite a lot of harm, particularly on insects. Insects, they have a large surface area to body volume, and their surface area absorbs more radiation than the body can hold. It's known that one of the 5G frequencies, when it was tested on a bee, just absolutely saturated the bee. The bee lost its immune system and the whole thing turned to pus inside. Now, I'm going to mention just a couple of studies here. 2 studies costing 30 million euros over a good 10, 12 years found an increased cancer tumours in animals exposed to phone mast radiation. Okay. Animals facing extinction have been reported. Animals facing extinction have been reported here in India, Netherlands, Japan. Up to 40% of hives lost. Insect extinction in Germany from study by entomologists. And so it goes on. Nobody is immune from this. Okay. I have given the Glastonbury Festival, I have given 2 of the Glastonbury Festival environmental lectures. You're welcome to come round and get them if you wish, but one of them has over 8,000 research articles on animals and a 20-page laboratory study citing the suppression of the immune system from ordinary low-level microwaves on cows, cats, dogs, hamsters, whales, birds, bees, bats, butterflies. Over 8,000 studies there. The second one I gave, the first one was predominantly bees. The second one was animals from all species. I quoted 14 properly, independently peer-reviewed university studies saying the same. And this isn't a UK problem. There's a lovely gentleman here sends me a picture of his hives every year. He is a priest. Living up in the mountains, the Rockies in the Colorado mountains, and he sends me a little letter every January with all of his hives. And to show this isn't just an English or UK problem, they are fighting a battle. The beekeepers are fighting a battle, and every year he tells me what he's doing. They're putting special protective coating on, or doing this or doing that, or moving them. But he sends me a note saying what he's doing to try to protect his bees, along with all of the other United States beekeepers. Now, I want to come finally on animals to a study here. This is probably the biggest and most comprehensive and legal study. This is a 15-year study, hundreds of papers, a 15-year study. Mount Nardi and Mount Matherson World Heritage Site in Australia. World Heritage Site in Australia. The study was for, and this is a legal study, for the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And the conclusion over Mount Nardi, Mount Matherson, they only had 105 transmitters, which isn't that many, over 15 years. And I've never seen anything described like this before. They said, over the last 15 years, this affects not only the top of the life chain species, but they are devastating the fabric of the community of the world heritage, causing genetic deterioration in an insidious, massive, and ever escalating scale. To truly understand what these studies reveal is to stare into the abyss. And I've never seen the word abyss in a scientific paper. And I thought I'll just look it up in my Oxford Dictionary to get the proper meaning, because this is coming here with our nature. This is coming here. And under my Oxford Dictionary, under abyss, it is an abyss of despair, a catastrophe, primal chaos, hell, and a bottomless chasm. Now, you can choose any of those, but it doesn't look good. Now, I summarised the whole of the document, and I've summarised the document down here, but these are groups of species. These are not species. Some of these are 66 and 86 species. And when you run down this whole list of species, the common words appear. They either migrate and they won't come back, they exhibit unnatural behaviour, and then you have gone, retreated to another area, rarely heard, gone, moved to the valleys, and we're going right down with birds, butterflies, wasps, ants, termites, bees, frogs, you name it, they're all there. And those that haven't gone, so the ants have become aggressive, but the moths, butterflies, ants, bees, flies, they are down around 80%. And some of the other creatures here, like the grey thrush, they list as rare, and there are several rares. But the problem is not whether they're rare, but whether you have enough species left to regenerate. And this is before the 5G satellites start coming overhead and beaming down on them. All of what I'm doing now is 5G. And I have an important quote here, because I think it can be useful, from Bug Life. And I want to tie it in because there may be a solution to this. And this is published in 2018. However, the charity Bug Life warns that despite good evidence of the harms, there was little research ongoing to assess the impact or apply pollution limits. That is not true, actually. I've quoted nearly 40,000 research papers. ESUK magazine publishes animal studies every time it comes out. There is generally one a day, but I'm not criticising bug life because I think one of the answers to this, and I thought about that sort of only yesterday, I thought, how can we sort of solve this here? I have no authority and no status. And whoever I try and reach will never reply to my letters, and I can't get through to them. But charities like Bug Life and the charities that control birds and the charities that look after the woodlands, they have, I don't know what you call them, but people who control, what's the word I'm looking for? The people who, like Prince Harry and all those. Patrons, that's it, thank you. They have patrons. And if, and this will be going out, if the people who have animal charities and tree charities, if they go to their patron and they can ask their patron for me to come to them, I don't care where I go, my own expense, if I can go to the patron just for an hour, the patron, although the patron may not be able to do anything, the patron may be able to meet somebody at a social event that I would never even be let in the gate to, but would meet somebody at a social event and say, hey, we've got this bloke here, you really want to talk to him, and we may be able to get a decision made. That is the only way I think we can actually get a handle on this, because the industry is immensely powerful. They stand aside for nobody. They have the money, they have tens of trillions of dollars. They can buy anybody, they can buy the scientific results they want. And finally, the last thing on trees that I think is immensely important, because the moment these went up, we started to lose our trees, and I haven't seen the research, but I bet if anybody starts looking, you will see that tree diseases are slowly creeping up over the last 20, 25 years. They have to. But what people don't understand about trees, and I'm going to put this very briefly, 70% of a fish is tree. The reason is when the trees shed their leaves, all of the broken down goodness gets washed into the streams, the rivers, the sea. It is fed on by microorganisms and bacterium, and they get fed on by bigger things and bigger things, the food chains, the food webs, and into the fish. And any fish, any 70% of a fish is generally tree, or the goodness from a tree. But there is a very important fact here. Among this enormous chain of microorganisms, you have tiny little microorganisms called coccolithopores. And they do their share of feeding and they are fed on. But they produce one important molecule. Coccolithopores produce a molecule called dimethyl sulfide. It is the only molecule known at this point in time, the only molecule known, because it drifts out of the water into the air. And it is the only molecule known to take part, and that is necessary, in cloud formation. Now, if you go and cut down all of the trees in there, I think we're going to cut down 70 million or something. You cannot replace 70 million trees with 70 million saplings. The average age will be about 100 years, and the saplings will not do the same job. They will not absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere for a start. Now, if you cut down the trees, you are cutting down the formation of clouds in the atmosphere, which means you will get droughts. It is as simple as that. We cannot go round cutting down that many trees if it isn't necessary, and the only way to have 5G is to cut down trees. So there is a balance there, and it needs to be known to somebody. Now, with 5G, I'm going to finish on 5G. When I spoke in Totnes not too long ago, just before Christmas, somebody was disagreeing with me, saying, we don't have that and we don't have that, and no, we don't. But it doesn't say that we will not have it. There is a lot more to 5G than just putting up little boxes on lampposts. 5G is the new generation. It is not a wave, it is a beam. It is going to be used by around 53 organisations in this country, plus the secret services, plus the military, plus the American bases and their frequencies. There are quite a lot of frequencies that people don't know about that are going up when you have a 5G transmitter, and most of them are secret. In fact, there are a lot. And 5G is going to merge. When I look at the frequencies, the spectrum across the whole range, 5G is going to merge basically with Wi-Fi 6. And they are already producing 6G. 5G and Wi-Fi 6 are getting very, very close together. They are going to be used in unison. Right, I need to keep these in order, or I shall be a silly boy. Right, here we are. Now, for decision makers, two of the world's leading professors in this area wrote a letter to all of the Nordic prime ministers. It is a brilliant letter. I wish I had the skill to write this letter. I certainly don't. It is a brilliant letter. But before the letter, I just want to, what do I want to do? I want to read a legal opinion from an international attorney at law office regarding 5G. This is for decision makers, and it says, and you're welcome to pop out to my house and get all this stuff. It says, a international firm of law, a law firm. It is the conclusion of this legal opinion that establishing and activating a 5G network as it is currently described would be in contravention of the current human and environmental laws enshrined in the European Convention of Human Rights, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, EU regulations, and the Bern and Bonn Conventions. And going through documents, I have found, and these mean absolutely nothing to me, the UN Convention 1989, each state, and we come under the United Nations, each state has a legal responsibility to protect children to ensure maximum development. Articles 19 and 6. If you want to go to your school and quote the law, there you are. The Children's Act, 1989, Part 3, Section 17. There is a legal obligation on local authorities to protect children against harm or the risk of. This stands apart as a likelihood or perceived risk is all that is necessary. It does not need proof. I believe that this only applies, and I'm not sure, to children who are in care, children who are fostered or adopted. But every school has one of those anyway, I would imagine. You have the Nuremberg Code, UN 1950, Article 7. Prohibits any experiment without consent. 5G is an experiment. In fact, all of them are experiments. Tetra Airwave is an experiment. But under the Nuremberg Code, any experiment that affects you bodily or your health is illegal unless you give your consent. There is only one exception, and I've only known it to be done once. Any doctor can experiment on his or herself. That is the only exception. That's part 5. Under EU law, a strategic environmental... Now, whether we are agreed whilst we were under EU law, I don't know. A strategic environmental assessment should be carried out before 5G. And if there is a problem and it wasn't carried out, the polluter, in other words, the decision maker, pays the principal or the costs for the cleanup. And that can be millions. A legitimate government must preserve the right to life, liberty, health of all of its citizens. That is the Treaties of Civil Government, 2nd Treaties, Chapter 2. And finally, the Health and Safety Act, 588, law in this country, 1st of July 2016. Employers must protect those of higher susceptibility, monitor health for electromagnetic radiation, both thermal and not thermal. For example, auditory sensory disturbance, change in brain function. That is the law. The letter from the 2 professors to Nordic populations that it is a mistake to assume that the populations are experimental guinea pigs for a largest ever biological experimental guinea pigs for the largest ever biological experiment on humans. Such experiments are totally unlawful according to the Nuremberg Code, the Declaration of Human Rights, the Declaration of Children's Rights. According to the polluter pays the principle, has to pay for all harm they have caused to humans. Now, an experiment was carried out on 5G. An experiment was carried out in Russia, and I'm going to speed up these last bits. In 1977, I have the paper, an experiment was carried out on animals and humans using 5G. I won't go into the units, but the radiation level, the humans and the animals were subjected to was at a level of 62. They were subjected to a level of 62 for 15 minutes a day for 60 days. In other words, 15 hours. That's it. You can legally, under the International Commission and our government, under the thermal regulations, you and all of the animals and all the trees, if 62, and I'm going to list the illnesses caused from a level of 62, you can legally be given for 24 hours a day, non-stop, forever, a level of 140, more than twice. The professors listed damage to the skin, liver, heart, brain, adrenal glands, blood. The fetus, children, stem cells, human sperm, honeybee. And that was just from one paper. There's the paper. It's a top secret paper from Russia that I had sent to me. So with 5G, I can't really, if I can show it to you very quickly, if I can find it very, very quickly. There we are. With 5G, as I hold it up to show you, on the right is a normal transmitter, and on the left, as I show it to you, you have the pulse of the 5G signal. And you can, if you want, you can get there's an excellent article on 5G. This is from ESUK magazine, which you can download from the internet. This is a really good, because it goes into the frequencies and everything. If you want it, it's the ESUK magazine, Summer 2019, Volume 17, number 2. And if you can't remember that, give me a ring tomorrow and I'll have it by the phone and I'll tell you. And one last thing about 5G, and this isn't known by most people. Two things. One is that there is a paper by the World Health Organization that one of the 5G frequencies is known to cause eye damage and skin cancer. That is published. And there is something which is being tried. I get lots from the universities because, believe it or not, the university people developing this are more scared about what they're doing, whereas I'm prepared to take the risk. There is, the mathematicians and physicists will know this. It is called if I can remember it, it's called the Brillouin precursor, is what is being tried out. It is a 1 second pulse that will precede the laser beam. It is a 1 second pulse that will precede the laser beam, up to 10 gigabyte in strength. And you really, really don't want anything like that flashing across your eyes or your skin. Nothing does. That is being tried out as a burst of energy so that you can download a whole movie or whatever. Now, just to finish off, it's not all gloom and doom. There is a very simple answer to this, all of this. There is a solution. All you have to do is run cables. Many countries, they don't have smart meters that use Wi-Fi. All of the smart meters run off cable. All of the cables into the schools, all of the Wi-Fi in the schools, well, it's not Wi-Fi, it is cabled from source. There are no microwaves in the air. If we took the trouble to run cables, just like telephone cables, everybody could have everything they wanted, even better, more secure, and better and faster. But we have 500 companies that are immensely powerful. They are pushing the Wi-Fi because they're getting as much money as they can, and this is how they are progressing. But the easy answer is just to have cable. If we run a cable along a forest, the trees are happy, the animals are happy, everybody is happy, you can have them into the schools. And if we turn down all of the transmitters, just turn them down, so that only the emergency services need them. If you're in a car and you break down in the middle of Dartmoor, you can ring. If we just had that system, which is what it was originally designed for, there would be no problem. But the problem is, and was unforeseen in the 70s, this system has been hijacked by children and addicts and everybody else, and the use was not thought up before they released this. And they are chemically and physically addictive. And I have articles from Scientific American Mind that show that children will demonstrate severe aggression where a child has threatened to murder her parents if they so much as touched her equipment, and a child has punched the mother in the face for touching the equipment. We're getting into that stage. But there is a solution, but the problem with the solution, and we go right back to the very first document, you will lose profit. And this really all comes down to money. And what I'd like to do now, we'll just get straight on, if we can, Charlie, please, straight on with questions.
Well done, everyone. I know, thanks, Barry. You're all doing really well. It's hard listening to this stuff. So we're going to have questions and answers. So we're going to cut it slightly shorter because we've all got homes to go to. So we don't want to go much past 10 o'clock. So we're going to have about 15 minutes for questions and answers. Hands up if you have...
Can I just say,
yes.
There is a gentleman who asked very, very early, he has a desperate question. Jonathan, is it Jonathan? To do with eyes. Sorry, could we have a question from Jonathan, please?
Yeah, thank you. It's about the 5G infrastructure, and part of that is going to be the LED street lighting. There is, in America, a researcher and lighting design mathematician who says that LED, in the form of the new streetlights and car headlights, is going to cause irreparable damage to everyone's eyesight, because LED light is rather like a laser light in that it's generated from a flat projector and has a beam-like capability. Could you talk about the health concerns in respect of LED light and how it might affect the optics?
Right, I'll go as far as I can. Yes to eye damage, yes to skin cancer. That's documented. Blue light. I'm assuming the blue light you're looking at is 450 to 500 nanometers.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Right. Blue light. Now there are radiation sensors, ganglions on the sides of the eyes. Their full function isn't fully understood, but it is known they pick up radiation and they send it back to the brain. Blue light is also known to go to the retina at the back of the eye. It is known to go to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus has special enzymes. They're called periods Now, the enzymes in the molecules or the cells in the hypothalamus in the brain, it is known that under normal conditions without blue light, they travel to the outside of the molecule or the outside of the cell. There is a chemical reaction, I don't know what it is, but then they come back. The complete cycle takes 24 hours. Now, blue light is known to slow this down by up to 2 hours a day. Up to 2 hours a day. The hypothalamus, I know, controls the internal circadian resonant frequencies, our internal clocks. The hypothalamus is also connected to the pituitary, which releases hormones and can be responsible for behavior. Now, that is as far as my knowledge goes, but I'm just going to throw this out. Are there any medical professionals here? I would like to know, if you slow down the hypothalamus for up to 2 hours a day and it is continuous, is there any medical professional here that could enlighten me and everybody on any knock-on effect for organs or whatever it is I don't know about?
Thank you. Some years ago I was in Malta.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the gentleman behind you.
Oh.
Sorry.
Doing mental health studies in Malta, and they did various studies, and we had what we call blue rooms, mood rooms, which what you were stating there with the mitochondrial and the pituitary gland and around that area, and they found that there was mood suppressor, and people got not depressed, but you could stabilize the mood, but it also slowed the functions of the mind.
So what we're saying, because they couldn't hear you at the back, it will change moods and suppress processes in the mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they also found out taurine in Red Bull actually lifted it.
Could I ask something else, sir, please? We're all adults and we have mechanisms that, how would that affect sort of, and I'm thinking of a teenager who is adolescent and probably is not in full control of their emotions or moods. Could you guess or give a professional opinion of how that would affect an adolescent?
I'm not quite on that level, and I'm going back 5 years to this study.
But it certainly would affect the stability of the mind anyway.
It does, and actually my son is 8 years old in Exwick Primary School, and I've noticed a mood change due to Wi-Fi activity there.
Yeah.
But there were 2 pills, and one of them is kind of banned in America now because of this. But I can't remember the study, so I don't want to quote myself.
Can I just add one thing to that, sir? I do know that in China they have opened up medical blocks now for this specific thing for children and mood changes. And the professor has written a brilliant paper. I can't remember his name. The professor has written a brilliant paper. And in the clinics right across China, the youngest child he's treating is 2.
I can believe it.
For addiction and mood behaviour. Sorry. Okay, questions?
Well, I've got a quick question for the audience. Put your hands up if you are now suffering from tinnitus. Yeah, if you weren't 5 years ago, but you're now suffering from tinnitus, put your hands up. Right up. Everyone can look around. How many people is that? That's 20%, 30% of the audience. Okay, any hands down? I'm back at school now. Questions? We have one question over here. I'm going to pass the mic to you.
2 quick questions. First, you said there was 3 organisms that were immune, and you said one was bacteria. What were the other 2?
The first are, and I don't know whether maybe somebody here will know, whether they are microorganisms or bacterium or what. They're called tardigrades. And NASA has beamed them into space and brought them back, and they've just come out of their little cocoon and thought, well, that was a nice rest. They seem impervious to everything. And the other, the bacterium thrive, and the other was scorpions.
Oh, scorpions. Oh, that's interesting. And the other thing was, with the microwave technology, was it actually being worked on by ARPANET in the 50s and 60s?
Sorry,
ARPANET. Was it being worked on by ARPANET? The US ARPANET, the defense people who...
I'm sorry, I can't
internet.
understand the question. In the 50s and 60s,
Yes.
was it worked on...
By ARPANET.
What's ARPANET?
ARPA, ARPA. They were the defense, sort of, a lot of their work was secret.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't know.
Because you said that you were working on Cold War microwave
Yeah,
technology.
the 1949, by 1949, they knew the brain frequencies and they were changing behavior just by beaming microwaves into animals and human brains. The only organizations I know are the Soviets, the CIA. We worked with them, but I don't know that particular acronym. Sorry.
Any more questions?
Well, we have no more than 10 minutes. Sorry.
Hi. Thank you for the evening.
That's my pleasure.
The presentation. Thank you. Just wondered, is there any truth in the idea that this is also not just about money, but a weapon of war and an idea of depopulation, which is their intent?
That is a particularly, is it a deliberate method of depopulation or a method of war? You've heard of HAARP, H-A-A-R-P in Alaska.
Manipulation of weather?
That can be used, I'm not saying it is or it has, it can be used because the microwaves can be any frequency and they only need to tune it to a brain frequency, and it can be bounced or reflected off of the ionosphere, which is hydrogen and helium, down to any part of the planet. And there isn't one HAARP, there are 16 around the planet. They can be used to change weather. They can be used for bacterial warfare, and I can't go into how and why now. They can be used to cause illness, but yes, they have been used. The Soviets microwaved the Americans. Recently, in one country, the American embassy was microwaved. Cuba, yep. We microwaved the Catholics in Northern Ireland. The Americans microwaved the ladies at Greenham Common to give them cancer and make them sick. But now, and I'm not going to mention the country or the countries, and why I like this is because I would like this to go out and I would like people to take notice in these countries. But I know one country from my travels where there is a very heavy, I think there are about 2 million Muslim populations, density of Muslims, and the concentration of towers is within there. There are other areas of the planet where the extremely wealthy, and I'm not trying to start a civil war here, but they are exempt microwaves in their areas. There are areas of the planet where particular densities of poor, and I've been to them, and I fought a case for them, and we won, and I had the king backing me, where the transmitters were always put in the poorest, densest areas. So you could argue that, but whether it is deliberate, I'm not in the mind of the decision makers. So can we take one more question quickly?
You know, they're doing the small cells, 5G small cells every 100 meters, every 200 meters, and if you thought of it the other way, not faster download speeds, but if you thought of it, you had an AK-47 on every street corner, you might think again about 5G.
Yeah, hi, Barry.
Yes.
Hi, Barry. I was living in Bristol, which is a 5G testbed, and it gave me cancer on my skin, and also I nearly lost my vision. It made me extremely fatigued over and over in years, and I tested the environment with a meter, and the exposure levels are horrendous. So I left my whole life behind. But my question to you would be, how do we protect ourselves from this stuff? I'm seeing a lot of products on the market that are giving out waves, like Blue Shield and stuff like that. Are these things actually working for us, or is there nothing to save us from 5G if we don't get it stopped?
Protection, it can be very, very costly. As far as we know at the moment, and may I say that is a brilliant question, and I only had some of the information yesterday from China. The new 5G, whether it's 5G or 6G, and I can't get my brain around why they're doing this at the moment, but a university has developed the 5G beam that will penetrate the metal casing on a cell phone. But my first thought was, well, if it can do that to the casing of a cell phone, what will it do to your eyes or your skin? And what is the purpose behind it? But at the moment, 5G you won't pick up on any of your acoustometers anyway. The mathematics for the beam is so complex that I don't know a mathematician in the world that can actually decipher what is actually inside the beam. There are many hundreds of frequencies being tested and tried. I don't know a single safe one. I can't think of any form of screening that will stop 5G unless, again, ESUK, they have a directory of, I think, 350 items, something like that, on their website that may stop different Gs. I don't know. 5G will not penetrate far into the house. It can be stopped by walls unless they put the metal bit in. But 5G is having a carrier wave that will take it further. Its penetrative power is not strong when it comes to buildings and trees, but they are using carrier waves, namely 4G or 3G, 700 megahertz, to bring it further into the house. But it is designed to marry up and work with smart meters and the Wi-Fi and everything else. So at the moment, until 5G is established, we don't know how to block it because they haven't produced it. It's like saying we want a bulletproof jacket, but we haven't made the bullets. Until you've made the bullets, you won't know what works.
Great. Thanks so much, Barry.
Okay.
Much appreciated. Now, I want to wrap this up because, time, and as I said, we've all got homes to go to.
Could I
Let's
just
do something.
add something there as well, please?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thanks. If I were a decision maker, a councillor or a school governor or something, I'm thinking of me. And somebody said, we want you to sign here because this is coming on your land, your territory, your property. I would say, very simply, give me the research paper. If I am the signatory, I take responsibility, and under this law, it is the principal who pays the costs. If I am signing for this, give me a research paper that says pregnant women, the animals, the trees, children will be unharmed for the duration that they are in front of it. Give me one research paper. I will send it for independent peer review to Nature publications or a top-rate journal, and I will see what their reply is. And they will come back and say, there is no safe level for a child ever. But I would safeguard myself, and I'm not saying this as a threat, but I do get a lot of counsellors and legal people coming to my house saying, can we take the council to court under civil law? And I don't know, but the pot is boiling, and if I were a decision maker, I would want something cast iron, say, give this to me, I will make my own decision, I will not be bullied.